Hello everyone. Namaste to all gadgeted officers, IS, IPS, doctors, surgeons. In today's video, we are covering 55 important science and technology updates with current affairs from 15 to 23rd August 2025, Part 1. These updates are very useful for exams like UPSC, BPSC, UPPCS, SSC, banking exams, NDA, CDS, and many more competitive exams. As you know, this channel brings you detailed English grammar lesson for SSC, SBI, IBPS, ACIO, NDA, CDS, railway, and many other competitive exams. Biology lesson for NEET, AIMS, UPSC, BPSC, and other competitive exams, and our weekly current affairs in science and technology series. I wanted to quote: success does not come from what you do occasionally. Success does not come from what you do occasionally. It comes from what you do consistently. It comes from what you do consistently. Success does not come from what you do occasionally. It comes from what you do consistently. Every small step of learning adds up to great achievements. With this thought, let's bring today's journey of knowledge. So let's get started with the first update. First news is NASA Surya Artificial Intelligence. NASA launched Surya, which is an advanced artificial intelligence model designed to transform space weather prediction. So it is designed to transform space weather prediction, developed alongside IBM and trained on 9 years of solar dynamics observatory data. It provides accurate forecast of solar flares and eruptions. So these solar events can, as we know, these solar events can disrupt satellites, power grids, aviation, and even though GPS system on Earth. So these are the major problem happened because of solar events. So solar flare, solar eruption. By making by making Surya open source, NASA aims to encourage global collaboration to enhance protection against space weather hazards. About space weather and its impact, space weather originates from solar eruptions such as solar flares and coronal mass ejection. So these release charged particles and magnetic energy that travel through the solar system. So when they reach Earth, they can damage satellites, cause power outages, disrupt aviation routes also, and endanger astronauts. So predicting this event is important for safeguarding modern technology and safeguarding infrastructure as well. So about Surya's NASA's artificial intelligence model for solar forecasting. Surya, it uses machine learning to analyze vast solar data sets. Unlike traditional models, as we know, it detects subtle solar activity patterns and predicts eruption up to 2 hours in advance only. So these improves forecast accuracy and lead time. NASA artificial intelligence Surya improves forecast accuracy and lead time. It offers better preparedness against space weather threats. So Surya's is open source nature, which help in encouraging researchers worldwide to develop new application and improve weather forecasting. So it is developed with IBM and NASA collaboration, which they have announced the open source release of Surya, which is a artificial intelligence based foundation model built to interrupt high resolution solar observation data and help to forecast solar weather. So, Surya is openly on Hugging Face. Surya is ushering in a new era for researchers, for technologists, and policymakers around the world. Technical challenges is also in shaping the model of this sun Surya's NASA artificial intelligence traditional model fragmented the system due to computational limits. Traditionally, previously, there was lack of computational computation knowledge. Surya combines spectral block layers and a long-term transformer backbone to capture, which help in capture broad and fine solar details. So Surya combines spectral block layers and a long-term transformer backbone, overcoming memory constant and merging frequency aware with time series modeling were key innovation which enabling this comprehensive approach. About scientific use cases, Surya successfully reproduced the St. Patrick Day geomagnetic storm of 2015. So it is the achievement of Surya. It successfully predicted St. Patrick's Day geomagnetic storm of 2015, accurately capturing its coronal mass ejection. It excelled in four research tasks also: forecasting active region emergence, predicting strong solar flares, estimating solar wind speeds up to 4 days, and forecasting extreme ultraviolet spectra. So it outperforms Surya, the latest AI based on AI. It is outperforming existing model up to 16%, up to 16% in FLIR prediction, demonstrating its scientific value. About collaborative developments, this projects united experts. This project united collaboration from NASA centers, universities, industry, and research institutes. Collaboration was important for using artificial intelligence, bridging artificial intelligence and heliophysics expertise. So it is supported by the National Science Foundation and NVIDIA. Surya represent a pioneering step toward artificial intelligence which assisted heliophysics, and it improves space weather resilience, help in global research also. Next news is Haryana defines forest. The Haryana government issued a formal definition of forest in August 2025. This move follows directive from the Supreme Court of India, which required all states to clarify forest boundaries and conduct surveys. So it is the direction given by Supreme Court of India. So, Supreme Court directives on forest definition. Recently, the Supreme Court mandated all states and all union territories to define forest boundaries clearly. The court asked for expert committees to map forest area using GIS based tools. So, the court warned that official failing to comply would be held personally accountable. About Haryana's official forest definition, Haryana's Environment, Forest and Wildlife Department defined a forest as land with a minimum size and canopy density. Criteria are at least 5 hectares if isolated, at least 2 hectares if contiguous with notified forest, and minimum canopy density should be 40% or more. Linear plantation. Legal background: the Forest Conservation Act 1980 restrict forest land diversion without central approval. The 1996 Godavarman case expanded the meaning of forest to include all forest lands regardless of size or status. So this broad definition aimed to protect even small forest patches. However, the 2023 Forest Conservation Act amendment narrowed it to only notified forest and government records, triggering legal challenges. So the Supreme Court is currently hearing these challenges. There are also few controversies. The environmentalists argue Haryana's definition is too restrictive. The 40% canopy density threshold excludes many dry and thorny forests, especially in the Aravali region. These forests have adapted to low rainfall. These forests have low rainfall and poor soil, resulting in sparse dry vegetation. The minimum area limits of 2 and 5 hectares are also seen as too high for dry zones. What are the impact? Haryana's definition will guide forest surveys and protection measure under the Forest Conservation Act. However, a narrow definition may leave many ecological important lands which are unprotected. So, balancing environmental conservation with development needs remain a key challenge. So, following Haryana's notification, state and district committees can proceed with forest surveys. The Supreme Court will review reports from all states and union territories. The outcome will influence forest governance across India. The next hearing on FCA amendment related issue is scheduled for September 2025. Next news is Sustainable Power 1404, 1404. Iran, it is a news from Iran. Iran conducted its first major naval exercise since the June 2025 conflict with Israel. After conflict with Israel, Iran conducted its first major naval exercise. The 2-day drill, a name of the drill was Sustainable Power 1404, which took place in Gulf of Oman and the Northern Indian Ocean. It involved missile launches from warship targeting sea-based objectives. So this exercise marks Iran's effort to restore its military image and assert maritime strength after recent confrontation. The drill followed a 12-day war in June 2025 between Iran and Israel. During that conflict, Israel struck Iranian air defenses and nuclear sites. So Iran retaliated with missile attacks on Israeli cities and attempted strikes on a US base in Qatar. So this exercise served as a message of resilience and deterrence amid ongoing regional tensions. Objective of Sustainable Power 1404, Iran's Navy aimed to improve combat readiness and enhance command coordination. This drill also sought to reinforce deterrence capabilities by demonstrating missile precision and warship coordination. So, official framed the exercise as proof of Iran's ability to recover quickly from recent military setbacks. Components and deployments, notably the frigate IRIS Sabalan and the vessel IRIS Ganaway, launched Nasir and Qadir cruise missile at sea targets. So these missiles underline Iran's long-range strike capabilities and precision targeting. Missile frigate 1 RIS Sabalain, another one is a vessel IRIS Ganavich, which was launched near Nasir and Qadir cruise missile at sea targets. Geopolitical implications are also there. It reflects Tehran's intent to project power and readiness to retaliate. So this exercise also signals Iran's commitment to maintaining influence in the Gulf of Oman and the Indian Ocean key maritime corridors. About military readiness, by conducting large scale drills, Iran aims to boost morale within its armed force and deter further aggression. So, this exercise may influence regional security dynamics, help in prompting neighboring states to reassess naval preparedness. Next news is Kerala becomes India's first fully digitally literate state. Kerala becomes India's first fully digitally literate state. This milestone marks the successful completion of the first phase of DG Kerala project. So name of the project is DG Kerala project. Based on that, Kerala achieved a landmark in India's digital journey by becoming the first fully digital literate states. The state's chief minister Pinarayi Vijayan announced this achievement after surveys and training across all local bodies. So the DG Kerala project conducted surveys covering 1.5 crore people from 83.46 lakh families and it identified 21.88 lakh digitally illiterate individuals also. Nearly all 21.87 lakh or 99.98%. 99.98% completed training and passed evaluation. So, this vast coverage ensured no demography was left behind. About inclusivity and accessibility, so this program included people of all ages, including senior citizen also included. One notable participant was 104-year-old Ma Abdullah Maulvi Bakawi from Irnakulam district. So one participant with an age was 104-year-old. Training was delivered through local bodies, denoting Kerala's strong decentralized governance. Bringing digital literacy enables equitable access to e-governance services. Citizen can now access many different welfare schemes like Ayushman Bharat, Pradhan Mantri Kisan Yojana, and Jan Dhan digitally. So it also help marginalized groups and women overcome barriers to digital access. It's helped in strengthening digital democracy. This can file grievances, submit rights to information requests, and participate in online civic activities. So the citizen can engage more effectively with government platforms with the help of digital skill, digital knowledge. So it also empowers people to hold authorities responsible. About Digital India Mission, Kerala's success offers a replicable model for other states of India also. Unlike projects focusing slowly on infrastructure, DG Kerala emphasizes grassroots training. So this approach aligns with the broader goals of the Digital India Mission. About socioeconomic empowerments, digital literacy promotes livelihoods, improve livelihood opportunities, and self-help group activities. It reduces exclusion of vulnerable groups by providing relevant skills. Small businesses and entrepreneurs benefit from enhanced digital capabilities, enhanced digital knowledge. So this contributes to inclusive economic growth and social upliftment. A digitally literate population can better respond to crises like pandemics and natural disasters. So, this strengthens Kerala's capacity for effective governance and public service delivery. Next news is India's national space legislation framework. India's space program is rapidly advancing, improving with landmark mission and missions are Chandrayaan 3 and the upcoming Gaganyaan. However, alongside technological progress, the India is focusing on building a strong legal framework for space activities. So, this legal groundwork is important for sustainable, which is responsible for secure space exploration and commercialization. About global legal framework for outer space treaty of 1967. The Outer Space Treaty of 1967 is the foundation of international space law. So, the treaty is Outer Space Treaty of 1967, which is the foundation of international space law, and it declares space the province of all humankind, forbids national appropriation, and holds states responsible for their space activities, including those by private entities. The nation must enact domestic legislation to operationalize international commitments and regulate their space efforts. So, however, these treaties require national laws for effective implementation. Importance of national space legislation. What are the importance of national space legislations? Space policies express intent but lack enforceability. Only statutory laws provide legal certainty and compliance mandates. National legislation ensure predictability and a stable regulatory environment for government and private sector. So national legislation ensure predictability and a stable regulatory environment for government and private sectors. It enables oversight, embeds sustainability, support investment, and innovation in the space industries. So, countries like Japan, Luxembourg, United States have already established legal frameworks which help in facilitating licensing, liability, and commercial rights. India's regulatory progress. India is adopting a careful, phased approach to space legislation. The Department of Science is working on technical regulation for commercial space operation as required by the Outer Space Treaty. Recent achievements include 2023 Catalogue of Standard for Space Safety and India's space policy, encouraging private sector participation. In 2024, the In-Space Norms Procedure guidelines were issued to authorize space activities. Next is industry challenges. There are some industry challenges and needs also. The Indian space industry faces operational difficulties due to regulatory gaps. There are some regulatory gaps. In space currently lacks formal legal authority, which hinders effective regulation. Pseudomonas, now clear licenses, procedures, timelines, and fees are it's mistaken. This is a mistake only. Clear licensing procedures, timelines, and fees are needed to reduce delays caused by multiple ministry approvals. So this Pseudomonas aeruginosa is wrongly printed here. The dual use nature of space technology complicate clearness. So while the transparent liability rules, industry challenges and needs are there, so transparent liability rules and affordable insurance framework are important to protect private companies. It is important to protect private companies with the help of transparent rules and affordable insurance frameworks. An independent appellate body is necessary to resolve different types of disputes and conflicts of interest. So, legal gaps are there. The Outer Space Treaty has so far prevented hostile action in space despite lacking full binding force. So, India's comprehensive space legislation will strengthen national regulation, but the larger challenge remains international political census on space security and cooperation. Next news is India's civil aviation safety. India's aviation safety framework faces critical challenges as passenger traffic rapidly grows because of the increase in population. A recent parliamentary report has brought into light systemic lapses, systemic gaps, and urgent reform needs following the Air India Express A1 AI 171 crash. The report warns that regulatory and operational strains risk future disasters without immediate action. About DGCSA challenges, India's aviation regulator, the Directorate General of Civil Aviation, DGCA, is severely under stratified. Only about half of the sanctioned posts are filled, with many technical staff only on very short-term deputation. So these causes high attrition and loss of institutional memory. So the Directorate General of Civil Aviation limited autonomy and low salaries of employee, hindering recruitment of skilled experts. So without reforms, India risks failing International Civil Aviation Organization audits, which could lead to restriction on its carrier. About and tariff control overload, it faces extreme fatigue due to long shift and staff shortage is also there. At major airports, merge control sectors at night increase workload dangerously. The report called this institutionalized overwork and demands on end to duty time exemptions. So enforcement gaps is also there. So the DGCS enforcement is described as a procedural formality lacking effective deterrence. The committee urged strict timelines for fixing different types of issues. Stronger penalties should be there, such as fines and license cancellation, and independent audits to ensure safety improvements are implemented. About helicopter operation oversights, helicopter safety oversight is fragmented and dangerous. The report recommends a unified national regulatory framework, mandatory terrain specific pilot training, and a dedicated DGCS cell to monitor high altitude helicopter flights. About recurring operational risk, The report demands a root cause analysis for every runway incursion. Remedial programs should be there for risky airports, and accelerated installation of fog navigation and instrument landing systems should be there. A whistleblower protection and safety cultures. The committee recommends adopting just culture principle, distinguishing honest errors from negligence. It also calls for legally backed whistleblower protection to ensure anonymity and prevent victimization. So, whistleblower protection and safety culture should be there. Whistleblower protection and safety cultures issue discourages whistleblower protection and safety culture issues are there, which discourages open reporting of safety issues. Heavy fines on individuals undermine trust. Dependence on foreign maintenance facilities. India totally depends on foreign maintenance, repair, and overall services for 85% of heavy checks, costing airlines rupees 15,000 crore annually, which is a large amount. So this creates strategic vulnerability to geopolitical or supply disruption. Governance issues. The Airport Authority of India lacks a dedicated member for air traffic control on its board. So Airport Authority of India lacks a dedicated member for air traffic control on its board. So this long-standing gap weakens safety planning and governance. The committee calls this it is a serious failure that endangers systemic safety oversight. Next news is bistable gene expression in Pseudomonas aeruginosa. Bistable gene expression in Pseudomonas Erigonosha. Recent research has uncovered that bacterium Pseudomonas p silent. Recent research has uncovered that the name of the bacteria is Pseudomonas aeruginosa, exhibits bistable gene expression. Two gene expression, a phenomenon where identical cells show different levels of gene activity. Where identical cell, bistable genes mean the identical cell, the same cell is showing different levels of gene activity. So discovery sheds light on how this deadly pathogen, deadly means it is fatal, it causes death. So this deadly pathogen adapts and survives in hostile environment such as hospitals. So the study focuses on the ZLPD genes, which shows variable expression which are linked to the bacterium abilities to cause infection. So the study focus on the gene, and the gene is GIPD, which shows variable expression. Variable expression causes infection. Understanding this mechanism is important because Pseudomonas aeruginosa is a major cause of whenever any person is getting infection from hospital, the major cause is plus Pseudomonas aeruginosa bacteria, and it is resistant to antibiotic, often resistant to different types of antibiotics. So bistability in microorganism refers to existence of two distinct features of the expression state of the same gene with a genetically identical cell. So this variation can be inherited by daughter cell, a process called epigenetic inheritance. So the variation can be seen in the same identical cell, and it is seen in their daughter cells offspring, a process called epigenetic inheritance. It allows bacteria to diversify their behavior, to change their behavior and adapt to adapt according to the changing environment. So in Pseudomonas aeruginosa, bistability may help the pathogen survive immune responses and antibiotic treatments. So it's often resistant to many type of antibiotics. The ZIPD gene in Pseudomonas aeruginosa encodes an enzyme involved in glycerol metabolism. GLPD genes, GL means glycerol. So this enzyme, there is a presence of an enzyme in this bacteria GLPD genes, which is involved in glycerol metabolism. Researchers found that GLPD expression widely among individual bacterial cell varies. It changes in many bacterial cell. This gene is changes in many bacterial cell. Some cell expresses it at high levels, while other have this gene very low level. So this variation is unusual because GLPD gene is a high expression gene. It is a mostly high expression gene, which normally show less variability. So this dual expression state suggests that GLPD can behave both a high and low expression gene depending on the cell. So about Pseudomonas aeruginosa, it is a rod-shaped bacterium which is mostly found in soil and water and hospital environments. Pathogen type is it is opportunistic means it infects mainly those with the person who is having weak immunity. Their immune power is weak. It forms one protective layers which is called biofilms, making it highly resistant to antibiotics. It has a large genome which allows adaptation to diverse environments. This bacteria solve epigenetics. There are offspring shows epigenetics means the study of heritable changes in gene expression that occur without there is a change in the gene but without changing in the DNA sequence. So epigenetic inheritance refers to the transmission of this epigenetic modification from one generation to the next, and these changes can influence traits and potentially disease susceptibility. So, what are the impact of this bacteria on humans? Mostly, it causes infection from hospitals. So, it is leading cause of hospital acquired infection. Vulnerable groups, the patient who is suffering from burn patient, who is under catheter user, cystic fibrosis patients. These are the vulnerable groups which get from the hospital infection. The bacteria is Pseudomonas adequacy. The disease cause is the problem caused by this bacteria is keratitis, eye infection, urinary tract infection from and from soil also, water also, pneumonia also, blood stream infection also. So mortality rate is leading to high hospital death. Strong antibiotic resistance makes treatment difficult. So, German researchers identified bistable expression of this gene, and the gene is a GLPD gene, which is having glycerol metabolism, active in some cell but inactive in other cell. Survival advantage is more cell with GLPD active were more lethal, where more causes death, more lethal in moth larva and mouse immune model. Cell without GLPD showed reduced infection ability. So on-off switching of GLPD survival and infection strategy, which is targeting this mechanism, may lead to new treatment for resistant infection. So GLPD gene is in P. aeruginosa, which encodes an enzymes involved in this enzymes involved in glycerol metabolism. Fat is broken down into fatty acid and glycerol, so it is involved in glycerol metabolism. Researchers found that GLPD expression varies widely among individual bacterial cells. Some cell express it at high level, while at other at low or none. So this is the on and off mechanism. High expression gene, which normally shows less variability. The dual expression state suggests that GLPD gene can behave both as high and low expression depending on the cell. Tracking gene expression with fluorescent, tracking this gene, GLPD gene, with fluorescent protein, with green fluorescent proteins. Cell expressing GLPD also produce high expression genes, GFP, growing green under specific light. So this gene, there is a presence of this gene, it produces green colors under specific light. So this allowed real-time observation of gene activity at the single cell level, where there is a presence of that gene or not that. So this is the reason on or off state condition. Now, impact on pathogenicity. Experiment using larva. Many experiment has used larva of this bacteria. Larva of the greater wax moth showed that bacteria lacking GLPD had a reduced ability to cause infection. Experiment in that we used larva of greater wax moth. Larva of greater wax moth. It showed that bacteria which lack GLPD gene had a reduced ability to cause infection. This confirmed the gene's role in pathogenicity, means causes more disease. Additionally, this P. aeruginosa cells interacting with mouse immune cells showed increased GLPD expression. The experiment has done with a larva of greater wax moth and with mouse. Mouse showed increased GLPD expression. So this suggests the host environment influences gene activity, enhancing the bacterial's infectious potential. So experiment done with great wax moth and with mouse. Implication are also there. The presence of biostability means that even a small bacterial population can able to initiate infection, start infection, as some cell will express virulence genes. Means the virulence genes means the genes which is causes disease, causes death at high levels. Virulence means. So this variability might contribute to the pathogen's resilience and resistance to treatment. So, understanding bistable gene expression could help develop a new strategy to combat P. aeruginosa infection, this bacteria infection, by targeting gene regulation mechanism. Next news is India's labor productivity gap. India's government recently announced the creation of 17 crore jobs over the past decade. So, India's government recently announced the creation of how many jobs? 17 crore jobs over the past decades. However, the nation ambition to reach $36 trillion economy by 2047 depends heavily on closing the vast productivity gap between formal and informal workers. The productivity divide between formal and informal sectors. Formal industry workers generates an annual gross value added of around rupees 12 lakh per worker. Informal sectors worker produce only 1.5 lakh annually. So this eightfold difference marks the productivity chasm. Nearly 91%, very big productivity differences. Nearly 91% of workforce remains informal while the 9% are formally employed. 91% of workforce remains informal while only 9% are formally employed. So this informal sectors low productivity drags down average incomes of India and marks the true economic potential of India's labor force. About wage disparity and labor market dynamics, India's large informal workforce and underemployment distort this link. Underemployment disturb this link. Excess labor supply suppresses wages despite rising productivity in formal jobs. Agriculture employs 42% of workers but contributes just 18% to GDP, indicating disguised unemployment and near zero marginal productivity. So, this imbalance prevents wage growth from keeping pace with economic output. Agriculture gives only 42% of workers but contributes just only 18% of GDP. So, which shows that there is a differences of unemployment and near zero marginal productivity. So this is about the chart 1992 and then the male and female ratio and disparity. While the real GDP grew significantly, labor force participation rates are gradually decreasing. This about also the labor productivity growth in India. Organized manufacturing sector has slowed down. So labor productivity in India's organized manufacturing sectors continues its downward spiral. It's falling down significantly over the last 8 years. So for me, there is a need of formalization as a policy priority. Formal jobs offer social security, stable contracts, opportunities for skill development. Policies like ESRAM, ESIC, EPFO need universal coverage. Small businesses and gig economy platforms require incentives such as simplified regulation and tax benefits to encourage formal contracts. Addressing the there is a need to address the skill deficiency. Only 4.7% of India's workforce is formally skilled. Only 4.7% of India's workforce is formally skilled, compared to over 50% in developed countries. This is a major difference. This skills gap restrict workers movement into higher productivity roles. Strong industry academia collaboration will ensure training relevance and job readiness. So, curricular must evolve to include digital, artificial intelligence, green technology skills. Scaling up institutions like the National Skill Development Corporation and Industrial Training Institute is essential. So, linking wages to productivity through innovation. Organized sectors such as electronics and textile can adopt such systems. Public programs like MGNREGS could introduce performance linked bonuses without compromising worker rights. Platforms such as ASEEM and DigiLocker can maintain integrated worker profiles to track wages, skills, and career growth. So, these are required to enhance productivity through innovation. About harshening the demographic dividend, India's young workforce is a key advantage. Young workforce is a key advantage. However, without formalization and productivity gains, this demographic dividend risk becoming a liability. It is becoming a liability. Economic growth must translate into wage growth to prevent inequality and the social unrest. So structural reforms that raise productivity and ensure fair wage distribution are important for inclusive growth. Next news is Bihar migrants face mass voter disenfranchisement crisis. Special intensive revision of Bihar's electoral roll has led to the deletion of nearly 3.5 million migrant voters. Bihar's electoral rolls has led to the deletion of removal of nearly 3.5 million migrant voters. These migrants were labeled as permanently migrated due to their absence during house to house verification. This move threatens to exclude millions from the democratic process both at their workplaces and home constituencies. Bihar's economy deeply depends heavily on migration, making this a critical issue for the state's political and social fabric and social developments. Bihar is a long history of out-migration as a survival and economic strategy. So the migrants often move seasonally or relocate their families also, creating circular and split family migration patterns. So this result in the mass removal of migrant voters from electoral rolls, denying them their fundamental demographic rights. There are many migrant challenges. India's voter registration system requires proof of residence. It always requires proof of residence and in-person verification during voting. So migrants living in temporary or informal housing often lack such documentation. So this structural rigidity excludes migrants from registration in host states. What are the impact of regionalism and sub-nationalism? This resistance encourages exclusion and deepens migrants' political marginalization. Bihar migrants face a double bind. And they are unable to register in destination states and removed from home state rolls, effectively silencing their vote, unable to cast their vote. But about findings from electoral participation studies, a 2015 Tata Institute of Social Science study brought into light the triple burden on migrants: administrative barriers, digital literacy, and social exclusion. So, Bihar's SIR initiative has widened this demographic deficit instead of bridging it. There are seasonal migration and voter turnouts, dual residency and political identity. Migrants retains voter ID from home status due to lack of acceptance in destination states. The state's current approach criminalizes this dual belonging. There is also cross border migration complexity. Along the India Nepal border, migration issues intensify. There are need for portable voter identity system. There is a need for portable voter identity systems. The election commission should stop blanket deletion and use cross verification with destination states. Panchayats and civil society should lead migrant outreach and re-registration efforts. Next news is Khalai second hydroelectric project. It is news from Arunachal Pradesh. Kalai 2 hydroelectric project in Arunachal Pradesh is moving forward with recent public hearing held for environmental clearance. So the 1200 megawatt project is planned on Lohit River in Anjwal district and is developed by THDC India Limited. This initiative is part of efforts to boost sustainable energy and regional development in Northeast India. So Kalai 2 is a run-off river hydropower project with pondage. It involves a concrete gravity dam, coffer dams, diversion, tunnels, pressure shaft, underground powerhouse, chamber and tail race tunnel. So this project will have 6 turbines and each rated at 190 megawatt. It has economic and employment impact. These projects require an investment of nearly rupees 14,000 crore. It expected to generate free power worth rupees 318 crore annually after commissioning. So it will also contribute rupees 2.2 crore yearly to the local area development fund. Approximately 1700 direct jobs will be created. So it is a help in strengthening economic and employment also. About environmental clearance process, the Arunachal Pradesh State Pollution Control Board conducted the public hearing. Over 350 project affected person from 33 villages participated. Concern raised included land compensations, employment, and local deployment. About strategic importance, Kalai 2 is one of the 13 installed hydro projects revived through agreements with central public sector units. It mainly aims to enhance energy security in the northeast. It will improve infrastructure also, such as roads, healthcare, and education. It supports India's renewable energy targets and regional economic growth. Next news is genetic link to tuberculosis in Saharia tribe. Saharia tribe. Recent research has uncovered a genetic connection explaining the high tuberculosis rate among the Saharia tribe of central India. High amount of tuberculosis seen in the Saharia central India, and the tribe name is Saharia tribe. Saharia tribe in central India. High tuberculosis rate in these people. This tribe, classified as a particularly vulnerable tribal group, faces tuberculosis rates far exceeding the national average. The study focused on the tribe's unique maternal genetic markers and their possible role in TB susceptibility. About Saharia tribe, it is mainly found in Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, and Uttar Pradesh. So, with a population of around 6 lakh, they live in remote forest areas. Houses are very simple, made of stone or mud. The tribe is known for the Sahara swag dance performed during Holi. So, their livelihood depends on forest produce, small scale farming, and labor with seasonal migration common. About Saharia tribes are very a weak section of peoples economically. So there is a reported high amount of tuberculosis rates in this Saharia tribe. The Saharia tribe has an exceptionally high TB incidence rate between 1,518 and 3,294 cases per 1 lakh people. This is much higher than India's average. So factors like because the reason the Sahara tribe people living in Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, poor nutrition, malnutrition, limited health care, facing environmental challenges, but the genetic basis was unexplored until now. What are the genetic reason are not known until now. Genetic, there is a need of genetic study. Researchers from BHU and other institutions analyze mitochondrial DNA, including 140 Saharias and 589 from neighboring groups. The focus was on maternal haplogroups with trace maternal ancestry. So the study used with the to know about this genetic reason. This study used high resolution mitochondrial genome analysis. The method uses high resolution mitochondrial genome analysis and phylogenetic methods to understand gene flow and lineage origin. What are the cause of these Saharan groups are facing high rate of tuberculosis? Findings: the Sahara tribes carries two rare maternal haplogroups. After search, after finding, scientists got that 5 and X2 absent in nearby population. These two groups are absent in 9,5 and X2 absent in nearby population. These haplogroups likely arrived through gene flow from Western India during the early Iron Age. This founder effect concentrated these lineages in the tribe, possibly influencing their immune response and increasing prone to TB, increasing cases of TB. So, implication also is there. The research is the first to link a population genetic structure with TB susceptibility. So it marks the importance of genetic factors alongside environmental and socioeconomic influences, also malnutrition, poor health care. So these are the also reason associated with increased rate of tuberculosis in this tribe. The findings can guide targeted public health strategies and TB control efforts in vulnerable tribal population. Future research and direction are also there. Future research may examine how genetics interact with external factors affecting health, like environmental and socio-economic influences. So about this relationship can improve healthcare delivery and disease prevention in tribal and marginalized communities. Next news is Nepal achieves rubella elimination. It is a very big achievement for Nepal. Nepal achieves rubella elimination. So, rubella is a contagious viral infection which is also called German measles. So, it poses serious risk to pregnant women, especially pregnant women, potentially causing miscarriage, stillbirth, severe birth defects. So, this rubella is a preventable through vaccination, which is safe and cost effective. Elimination of rubella by in Nepal, it helps Nepal to protect future generation from lifelong disabilities. So, WHO has officially declared Nepal free of rubella, contagious, infectious viral infection, which is called German measles. So Nepal is now the sixth country in WHO Southeast Asia region to eliminate rubella, reinforcing the region's commitment to disease control by 2026. So, and about the what are the steps taken to eliminate rubella in Nepal? Nepal introduced the rubella vaccine in 2012, a nationwide campaign targeting children aged 9 months to 15 years. A second dose was also given to the routine immunization schedule in 2016. Since then, Nepal conducted 4 national vaccination campaigns in 2012, 16, 20, and 24. So these efforts maintain high coverage despite public health emergencies, achieving up over 95% vaccination by 2024. So these are the strategies adapted by Nepal, and declaring an innovative approaches Nepal has adapted, and like declaring an immunization month to intensify vaccination efforts. So rubella, about the it is a disease which is a called German measles. It is also known as 3-day measles because the rashes often appear about 3 days. It is mostly seen in children and adults and pregnant women in pregnancy also, and causes many problems to the child: deafness, cataracts, heart defects, intellectual disabilities, increased risk of miscarriage or stillbirths. So it is spreads through person, cough or sneeze because it is highly contagious, infectious, airborne because it is a ear, it is caused by airborne virus particles. So it this disease spread through virus. Prevention is MMR vaccine, measles, mumps, rubella vaccine. So there is no specific medication to cure rubella. To cure rubella, so Nepal uh, adopted innovative approaches like declaring an immunization month to intensify vaccination. Outreach program is also conducted for children who missed vaccination. Districts were motivated, or many districts were motivated to achieve full immunization status. So these are the strategies adopted by Nepal. There are also enhanced surveillance. Nepal monitor rubella cases. This improved disease surveillance, enabled accurate data collection and timely response. There is also regional verification commission for measles and rubella, which help in evaluation of Nepal's data and recommended rubella elimination certification. About regional and global context, Nepal joins Bhutan, Korea, Maldives, Sri Lanka, Timor-Leste in eliminating rubella in Southeast Asia region. So this regional goal to eliminate measles and rubella was set for 2026 after setbacks during COVID-19 pandemic. There are many significance for public health. It strengthens national immunization programs and health system. Nepal's achievements serve as a model for other countries also, striving to eliminate vaccine preventable diseases under challenging conditions. Next news is India's innovation surge fuels patent growth. India's innovation surge fuels patent growth. India's innovation landscape has undergone a remarkable transformation in recent years. For the first time in 2023, India's origin patent filing exceeded those from any other single foreign country within India. So, this milestone marks India's shift from technology consumer to a technology sector. So this change reflects government policies, institutional support, and rising research capabilities. So India's applicant accounted for 57% of all patent filings in 2023. This is increased from the early 2000 when Indian institutions filed less than 20% of patent domestically. India has also become the second largest recipient of granted patent, overtaking the US in 2021. The National Intellectual Property Rights Policy and Atal Innovation Mission encourage startups, researchers, and students to innovate and protect ideas. So these measures help simplify patent filing and accelerated approvals. Government initiative also taken National Intellectual Property Rights and Atal Innovation Mission. Second, there are some challenges: changing patent landscape by sectors. Computer science patent rose. Patent trends show a shift from traditional mechanical and chemical engineering to totally technologically driven fields. Now the technology driven fields are improving, increasing. Computer science patents rose from 1.27% in 2000 to 26.5% in 2023. Electrical engineer patents increased from 8.27% to 16.41%. Biomedical patents jumped from 0.6% to 10%, while physics related patents doubled to 4%. So, this diversification reflects India's growing focus on high tech and interdisciplinary approach. Patent processing times have improved dramatically. So, despite nearly 80% of recent patents still awaiting decision, the system has become more efficient, supporting faster commercialization and innovation cycles. So this increase in patents grants in line with the rapid growth of India's startup ecosystem. As of March 2025-24, there were more than 1.25 lakh recognized startup in the country, out of which 45% organized in tier 1, tier 2, 3 cities. Startup are leading on various front in terms of technology. So global landscape of patent is also there. According to World Intellectual Property Organization report, India rose from 9th position in 2020 to 6th position in global patent filing in 2023. So India rose from 9th position in 2020 now to 6th position in global patent filing in 2023. So this rise has been driven by advances made in artificial intelligence, deep tech and healthcare. So in 2023, Asia accounted for around 70% of global patent filings. Notably, China and India were the only two countries from emerging market to feature. Shift in patent filers, individuals and institution leader also there's the profile of patent filers have changed. Education institution now contribute nearly 43% of filings. Government bodies and hospitals remain minor contributors. Programs like Kapila and Atal Innovation Mission have increased IP awareness and entrepreneurship in academia. There are also role of university and research institutes. Universities have become innovation hub. IIT Madras have doubled granted patent. IIT Bombay also led with 421 patent granted in 2023-24. So these efforts are important for nurturing early stage research and startups. India's R&D expenditure is 0.67% of GDP, which is below the US 3.5% and China 2.5%. To sustain innovation growth, investment must rise to 2% of GDP. So this is important for India's self-dependence amid global trade uncertainties and to enhance its global knowledge leadership. Next news is AI design antibiotics combat drug-resistant superbug. Artificial intelligence has recently enabled scientists to create two new antibiotics which are capable of killing drug resistant bacteria such as Guineria and MRSA. With the help of artificial intelligence, scientists created two new antibiotics which are capable of killing two drug resistant bacteria such as Guineria and MRSA. This breakthrough comes amid a global health crisis caused by antimicrobial resistance, which leads to over 1 million deaths annually. So, researchers at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology use generative AI algorithms to rapidly screen thousands of molecules. So, these newly discovered antibiotics successfully eliminated bacterial strains which are resistant to existing drugs, signaling a promising advancement in medicine. Scientists use generative artificial intelligence to scan large molecule barriers. This intelligence predicted antibiotic potential based on chemical properties and biological activities. It also filtered out molecules likely to cause human toxicity or mimic extensive drugs. So, this approach accelerated the discovery processes and reduced cost also. This artificial intelligence design antibiotics addressing antimicrobial resistance. So this resistance limits treatment option and increases mortality rates worldwide. So the new antibiotics target drug resistant strains of Guineria and MRSA, two pathogen of major concern. By expanding the arsenal of effective drugs, artificial intelligence driven discovery help in curbing the antimicrobial resistant crisis. So, capable of killing this microbial infection. Potential for a second golden age with the help of artificial intelligence. it can initiate a second golden age in antibiotic development. This innovation could transform infectious disease management globally also, a design of entirely new drugs rather than modification of existing ones. It also, this advancement is part of wider trend of artificial intelligence revolutionizing healthcare. Artificial intelligence analyze tumor biopsy images to tailor therapies and reduce overtreatment also. For example, a recent international study used artificial intelligence to know about prostate cancer patients, and it would benefit most from specific drug treatments. So there are few challenges also there. Integration of artificial intelligence into drug discovery demands many interdisciplinary collaboration. Ethical consideration around artificial intelligence use and data privacy also arises. So, continued investment in artificial intelligence research and regulation will be crucial to harness its full potential in medicine. Next news is region-specific antivenoms. Snakebite and antivenom remains a critical health challenges in India, especially in region where the standard polyvalent antivenom is less effective. Recent calls from the herpetologist and the herpetologist, which the doctor which treats with the patient got the snake bite. Expert emphasizes the urgent need for region-specific antivenoms. There is a need for antivenoms. So this is particularly important in Northeast India. Particularly important for Northeast India, where snake species differ from big four, responsible for most death nationally in Northeast India. So it help in improve treatment outcomes. Current snake bite treatment challenges are there for Indian cobra, common karait, Russell viper, saw scale viper. So this serum works well in many parts of India, but is less effective in the northeast. Here, snakes like monoclade cobra, green pit vipers, and other kraits causes more bites. So using the wrong antivenoms delays recovery of patient and increases death rate. So there is no widespread supply of region-specific antivenom to address this gap. There is need for regional venom centers and serpentariums. Experts suggest that there is a need of regional venom center and serpentariums. A serpentarium would house live snakes ethically for research and venom extraction. Such facilities help study venom composition and clinical effects specific to local snakes. So this approach aims to improve treatment success and reduce complication. So India faces 58,000 annual snake bites death. Experts urge region-specific antivenoms, better healthcare access, and awareness to protect vulnerable communities. So snake bite burden and epidemiology in India is about 58,000 annually snake bite death in India. Now, there is some public, and mostly in the Bihar, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, and Odisha. Eight states bear the highest burden. Public health response and awareness. India launched a national action plan in 2024 to cut snake bites death by half by 2030. Rural areas lack timely access to quality antivenoms and healthcare. There is some mitigation strategies is also there. A digital platform or app is a digital platform or application is proposed to report snake encounter and bites. To reduce human snake conflicts, Assam plan a state level steering committee and serpentarium for research. So this tool would provide real time data to guide rescue operation and public health responses. Next news is primary amoebic meningoencephalitis. Amoebic meningoencephalitis. News from Kerala. Kerala's Kozhikode district recently reported 3 consecutive cases of primary amoebic meningoencephalitis. 3 cases of primary amoebic meningoencephalitis. One victim, a 9-year-old girl, died. 2 others, including a 3-month-old infant, remain critically ill. So, this rare and often fatal causing death. Brain infection, which is causing brain, is caused by Neisseria fowleri, which is commonly called the brain-eating amoeba. The state has recorded, Kerala has recorded 8 cases and 2 deaths so far in 2025 because of amoebic meningoencephalitis caused by amoeba name is Neisseria fowleri. Neisseria fowleri. So this amoeba types grow in warm, fresh water and soil. Infection occurs when contaminated water enters through nose, allowing the amoeba to reach the brain. It enters through your nose, through nose. So this disease progresses rapidly and usually causes death. Symptoms include headache, fever, nausea, neurological decline. So it grows in warm, fresh water and soil. Transmission and infection routes. Neisseria fowleri enters the body through your nasal passes. During activities like swimming or bathing in warm fresh water. However, recent cases suggest infection can occur without direct water exposure. The amoeba is also found in dust and soil, which may be a source of infection, especially in infants. Another genus also found Acantha amoeba. Acanth amoeba, it can cause similar meningoencephalitis but has a longer incubation period and different transmission modes. So primary amoebic meningoencephalitis is a rare, usually causing death. Fatal infection of brain caused by amoeba Neisseria fowleri. It is also known as a Neisselriasis. So this infection is typically acquired when contaminated fresh water enters the nose, usually during recreational activities like swimming or diving in water or freshwater bodies and affecting your immune system, brain system. Infection routes and symptoms are hallucination, confusion, 1 to 14 days of infection, early symptoms, and ultimately common death. High mortality rate, so it is almost always fatal, causes death. High mortality rate, over 95%. Treatment is often involves a combination of medication, including amphotericin B, rifampin, fluconazole, miltefosine. These medication are given. Then prevention is what to avoid swimming or diving in warm freshwater bodies when water temperature are high. Use nose clips while swimming or hold your nose shut. So these are the prevention method. Chlorination should be required. So Kerala reported its first death case in 2016. The number of cases has slowly increased. That in 2024, Kerala recorded 36 positive cases with 9 deaths. And fertility rate, death rate is 97%. So the first Indian survivor was a 14-year-old boy from Kozhikode in 2024, one of the only 11 survivor worldwide. What are the factors contributing to the rise in cases? It is linked to increased testing for acute encephalitis syndromes, which includes amoebic meningoencephalitis. So, environmental changes such as climate change and pollution also aggravate this problem. Warmer temperature favor the amoeba's growth. So, Kerala has introduced a special treatment protocol and a standard operating procedure for managing PAM, becoming the first in India to do so. There is also pro-treatment molecular testing is there, early diagnosis is there. Kerala's health authorities have improved diagnostic methods and treatment protocols. Next news is about universal rule of biodiversity patterns discovered globally. Universal rule of biodiversity patterns discovered globally. Recent research have revealed a universal pattern in how biodiversity arrange itself within the world's major biogeographical regions. So this discovery challenges earlier assumption that a species distribution inside each region would be unique and unrelated to others. The study analyzed over uh, 30,000 species from various taxa across the globe. So it found a clear, repeating layered structure in biodiversity that transcends continents, climate zones, and organism types. So recent research has revealed a similar pattern, universal pattern in how biodiversity arrange itself within the world's major biogeographical region. So traditionally, scientists believe that biodiversity patterns inside this region were idiocentric. Tropical zones are known for high species richness, while polar regions have fewer species. However, the new study sought to find if a universal internal pattern exists within these regions. Researchers used global databases such as IUCN Red List and BirdLife International to gather species to collect species range data. Each cell species were recorded and grouped using a network analysis tool called InfoMap. So this grounded cell into biogeographical cluster based on species co-occurrence. So and there are adoption of key biodiversity metrics also, which define the internal structure and biodiversity within each region. Four metrics were analyzed for each cell. There is a discovery of layered biodiversity pattern. These sectors form a layered onion-like structure, means seven recurring biogeographical sectors within every major region and taxonomic groups. The core layers are species rich, highly endemic, and contain few foreign species. Moving outward layers show decreasing richness and increasing presence of widespread generalist species. There is an environmental influence on biodiversity layers. Temperature and rainfall models predicted the placement of cell within these layers in 98% of cases. This indicates environmental filters strongly influence which species survive in each layer. Outer layers mainly consist of subset of species from inner layers rather than completely different specialists. The study marks the importance of environmental factors like climate, elevation in shaping species distribution. In regions like Himalayas, this knowledge can inform strategies to protect biodiversity and climate change. The study noted gaps in data from some taxon regions, such as dragonflies in Eurasia and trees in North America. Certain biodiversity rich tropical areas remain underrepresented. Next news is native plants alter Assam's Diru Sekhova ecosystem. The riverine ecosystem of Diru Sekhova National Park in eastern Assam is undergoing changes. Diru Seknova National Park in eastern Assam is undergoing changes. A recent study revealed that native plants, along with invasive species, are transforming the park's grassland landscape. So, Dibru Sekhwahova National Park is India's only habitat for feral horses and a vital biodiversity hotspot. So these changes threaten many endemic and endangered species. So UNESCO declared it as a biosphere reserve in 1997. DSNP. The park features grassland, semi-evergreen forest, wetlands, providing habitat for unique flora and fauna. So there are key findings on vegetation changes. The Shrublands and degraded forest expanded, replacing grassland and semi-evergreen forest. By 2024, degraded forest covered 23.47% of the area, rising from 10.87 square kilometer in 2013. So this shift indicates a loss of open habitats which are vital for many species. There are role of native and invasive plant species. Native trees, Bombex, Siba, Simalu, and Legesproima speciosa are spreading into grasslands. So these grassland invaders alter the ecosystem similarly to invasive species like Chromelina odorata, Ageratum, conizoids, Parnithium, which is a weeds, Historianopus, and Mycenia micarnata. So both native and invasive plants reduces grassland areas and change vegetation structure. So these affect species development in open habitats. There are also impact on wildlife and biodiversity. Grassland loss threatens species such as Bengal florican, hog deer, swamp grass babblers. So these animals rely on open grassland for survival and breeding. So the park also houses about 200 feral horses, which were descendant of World War II military horses. About anthropogenic pressure and flooding, recurring floods from the Brahmaputra River also influence landscape changes. There is many recommendation for conservation. Community-based conservation efforts are encouraged. Managing land use based on scientific data can protect habitat patches and improve survival chances for native species. Next news is veterinary blood transfusion guidelines. The government of India is advancing veterinary healthcare by proposing standardized guidelines for blood transfusion and blood banking in animals. It is to improve emergency and critical care for livestock and companion animals. To stabilize a regulated framework for veterinary transfusion medicine across India. So, India's vast livestock population exceeds 530 million, including cattle, buffalo, goats, sheep, and other species. So, despite this, veterinary blood transfusion practices remain unregulated and inconsistent. So most blood transfusion in animals depend on hospital available or client owned donors without standardized screening or without standardized blood typing. So there is no national regulatory framework or uniform protocol for donor selection, blood collection, storage, and transfusion safety. Animal blood volume and blood group system. Blood volume in animal ranges from 7 to 9% of body weight. Blood typing is crucial to avoid transfusion reaction. It is important to do the blood typing. So animal blood groups are species specific. Cattle have 11 groups, dogs has 9, horses have 8, cats have 4. Criteria for donor animals should be there. Vaccination, especially against rabies and regular deworming, are mandatory. Female donors must not be pregnant or recently lactating. Donation frequency is regulated. So these are the criteria for donor animals. Now should be establishment and operation of veterinary blood banks. Blood bank will be set up in veterinary colleges, referral hospital, diagnostic centers, and specialty animal hospitals. They will operate 24/7. 4. Health screening, blood collection, processing, storage, transfusion, monitoring, biosafety. So, National Veterinary Blood Bank Network and digital integration will coordinate blood bank nationwide. A helpline and online portal will connect clinics, hospital, and donors during emergencies. The SOP strictly prohibits monetary incentive for animal blood donation. This ethical stance aligns with global best practices in transfusion medicine among animals. Next news is India's sustainable aviation fuel production. India is set to begin commercial production of sustainable aviation fuel at a scale by December 2025. So, in IOC, Indian Oil Corporation, the country's largest fuel refiner and retailer, has received international certification for manufacturing SAF, sustainable aviation fuel, from used cooking oil at its Panipat refinery. So Indian Oil Corporation, which is the India country's largest fuel refiner and retailer, had received an international certification for manufacturing sustainable aviation fuel with the help of used cooking oil at its Panipat refinery. So it is a step towards reducing carbon emission in the aviation sector. So the Panipat refinery will produce 35,000 tons of sustainable aviation fuel from used cooking oil. So this certification also set a precedent for other Indian refineries to expand sustainable aviation fuel manufacturing. The volume aligns with India's target of 1% sustainable aviation fuel blending for international flight by 2027. So IOC plans to engage aggregators to streamline collection and ensure a steady supply of raw materials. So SAF is biofuel which is made from sustainable sources with chemical properties similar to conventional jet planes. So aircraft engines can use SAF blends without modification. It is an advantage. So this move supports international commitment to curb carbon emission. There are some regulatory framework and future targets. India's National Biofuel Coordination Committee has set indicative SAF blending targets -1% in 2027 and 2% into 2028 for international flights. Domestic flight mandates are expected after 2027. So these targets align with global CORSIA framework, which requires airline to offset carbon emission growth beyond 2020 levels from 2027 onwards. There are some cost and production pathways. Other Indian companies are developing SAF units based on various technologies. All must obtain certification before commercial operation. The higher cost remains a key barrier but is expected to decline with scale and innovation. The year 2027 is critical as CORSIA mandatory phase begins, increasing pressure on airlines worldwide to adopt SAF. Next news is the Goga which is a vibrant folk religious festival celebrated in northern India. The festival honors Goga Peer, a folk deity believed to have the power to protect against snake bites. So, celebrated annually in the Bhadrapad month, it marks the syncretic tradition of India where people from different religions participate in shared cultural practices. So it is celebrated in the Bhadrapad month of Hindu lunar calendar. The festival is predominantly observed in Rajasthan, Haryana, Punjab, Jammu Kashmir, Uttar Pradesh. So it is especially popular in rural areas where folk tradition remain strong. So it exemplifies India's syncretic cultures. Both Hindus and Muslim, it's a very important point to note that both Hindus and Muslim worship Gogapir, calling him by different names but sharing faith in his powers. The festival encourages unity and cultural cohesion in diverse rural societies. Next news is new Dempsey fly species discovered in Western Ghats. Two new Dempseyfly species have been identified in the Western Ghats. These species were earlier mistaken for an older known species. Earlier, it were mistaken for an older known species. Two new Dempsey fly species have been discovered in the Western Ghats. Researchers from Maharashtra and Kerala discovered the Sahoda, Sado damsel and Crimson Sado damsel. The Konkan Sado damsel was found in Sindhu Durg district, Maharashtra, and the Crimson Sado damsel was located in Thiruvananthapuram district, Kerala. So both belong to Sado damsel group known for preferring shaded forest areas. So about habitat, the Western Ghats are home to 16 species of Protosticta damsiflies. Most have small restricted ranges with its biodiversity hotspot. So these two new species were found in microhabitats, small forest patches with dense shade and clean streams. About conservation concern, shadow damsels grow only in pristine habitats with good canopy cover should be there and unpolluted streams. This survival is threatened, their survival is threatened by habitat loss due to plantation expansion and tree felling also. Their presence signals healthy forest ecosystem and clean water sources. What are ecological importance? Dempsey flies like shadow damsels serve as bioindicators. Their presence reflect the ecological health of forest and water quality. Since many protostic species are microendemics, focus survey in the Western Ghats can reveal more under-discovered species. This underlines the reason rich but fragile biodiversity. So, India Foundation for Butterflies, National Center for Biological Science, their combined expertise in taxonomy, ecology, and molecular biology was crucial for this work. Next news is India Phonics Palms. India Phonics Palms recent botanical research has uncovered a new species of palm in India and reclassified existing ones within the genus Phonix. This finding stem from revisiting the 17th century work Hortus malabaricus by Hendrik van Riedi. The study resolved long-standing confusion about palms found across the Indian subcontinent and neighboring region. The Indian phonics palms, the palm named Kotou indil appears in Hortus malabaricus, a monumented 17th century botanical treatise on Malabar flora, compiled by Hendrik van Riede with help from physician E.T. Achudan. The work documents medicinal plant of Kerala coast. It is a medicinal plant of Kerala's coast. The palm was later named Phoenix sylvestris by William Roxburgh in 19th century. About recent scientific investigation, a team from Jawaharlal Nehru Tropical Botanic Garden and Research Institute and Botanical Survey of India re-examined Kottau Indale. They confirmed that the palms in Kerala and Sri Lanka belong to Phoenix sylvestris. They also reclassified three previously distinct species, P. pusilla, P. perinifera, P. genilecia, as Phoenix sylvestris. The new study identified a new species on India's eastern Bangladesh, Gujarat, Rajasthan, and Pakistan named Phoenix roxburghi after botanist William Roxburgh. This palm grows taller, 12 to 16 meters than P. sylvestris. It is a solitary trunk, large leaves, leaflets, streamlined flowers. So, significance of phonics, the taller trunk and distinct floral scent help distinguish it. Fruit size and shape also vary, supporting its status as a separate species. So, these differences clarify earlier confusion noted by 19th century botanist William Griffith. Impact, the research revisits centuries old botanical records using modern taxonomy. It corrects earlier misclassification and enriches knowledge about palm diversity in South Asia. The findings were published in the journal Phytotaxa, demonstrating the value of historical texts combined with contemporary science. The Hortus Malabaris Botanical Garden in Thrissur commemorates the original treatise. So it serves as a center for conservation and education about Malabar's unique flora. The garden marks the continuing relevance of Van Riede's work and the new palm discovery. ISRO to conduct first Gaganyaan test flight. Next news is ISRO to conduct first Gaganyaan test flight in December 2025 confirmed. India is steadily advancing towards its historic goal of launching its first human space flight mission, Gaganyaan. In a significant announcement, ISRO chairman V. Narayanan confirmed that the first test flight of Gaganyaan will take place in December 2025. So with over 80% of critical tests already completed, this mission represent a bold leap in India's journey into human space exploration, aligning with its global growing space ambition. So the first unmanned test flight in December 2025 will validate key system, including the crew escape system, orbital module, launch dynamics, laying the groundwork for the future manned mission. So objective of the Gaganyaan mission duration up to 7 days in space, human rated GSLV Mk third, establish India's indigenous human space flight capability, major ISRO milestone in 2025. Chairman Narayan also spotlighted a range of 196 achievement by ISRO. Key development GLAX 2025. So India's participation in Global Space Exploration Conference showcasing technological readiness, high thrust electric propulsion system, launch of US communication satellites, and then furthering global commercial partnership, 13 terabits of data from Aditya L1 shared with scientific community, enhancing solar research and space weather forecasting. Next news is Russia to launch Venera D mission to Venus by 2036 lander, orbiter, lander, orbiter, and balloon probe. So, under its new National Space Program, Russia plans to launch the Venera D mission to Venus between 2034 and 2036. The mission will include a lander and an orbital spacecraft called orbiter and balloon probe. So, this mission marks Russia's return to interplanetary exploration after decades and aims to revive the Soviet era Venera legacy. So Venera Doglo Z Vusaya, meaning long lived, is designed to provide a comprehensive scientific study of Venus atmosphere, surface, and climate system. So Venera D is designed to know about more about the Venus atmosphere, surface, and climate system. It is Russia's most ambitious effort to explore Venus since the Soviet era Venera and Vega programs. Mission components: a lander will land on Venus' hard surface to study surface structure, temperature, pressure, may analyze soil sample also, or orbital spacecraft will capture high resolution images, will study the atmosphere and relay data from the lander and balloon probe. Use balloon probe will float in Venus upper atmosphere to measure temperature, wind, and chemical composition of Venus. Timeline and development is preliminary design phase is January 2026, duration 2 years. Key contractor is Lavochink Association. Launch window is 2034 to 36. Launch vehicle is Russian launcher due to Venus extreme environmental condition. Careful design and planning are criticals. Scientific goals are study atmosphere dynamic and cloud chemistry, investigate potential volcanic activity, analyze climatic evolution and compare it with Earth, search for sign of past habitability. There are some global context and competitions. Recent findings of potential biosignature gas, that is phosphine, have renewed scientific interest in Venus. Because of recent finding of phosphine, have renewed scientific interest in Venus. Venera D mission will join this new wave of Venus exploration. NASA, Veritas, and Da Vinci Plus mission. ESA in recent mission planned for the early 2030s. The mission is expected to revive global interest in Venus. So these are about the current affairs part 1. Then we will watch the next series. I will upload within few days. Keep learning, keep consistent. Kindly watch the next series. Best of luck for your forthcoming exam. Thank you for